So
they want to get rid of the protection so they can F society. That's what they want to do.
And F society means no God. We are the gods.
We are the gods.
And the model of that is communist China. Communist China, there's a huge purging right now of Christians and of religious people. The Uyghur Muslims are in concentration camps. The Falun Gong. The point is that the model for the globalists is communist China. A total surveillance state. Religion is outlawed. Fast forward. Look at Christianity, look at the Krishna consciousness movement, the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. If we are not discerning and cannot see the writing on the wall, these religious movements will be stamped out. They'll be made illegal. And the books of Srila Prabhupada will be banned for hate speech. That is coming.
I can't comprehend why you're killing me. I don't understand why you're putting me down. We see the same sun going up. We walk the same ground. Must me. Must me. Must me. Must me.
Hey, everybody out there in the fake real world. How you doing? My name is Gargs Allard, and this is
Buzz Ryan coming at you.
for another edition of
The Eighth
Eighth
House Podcast. Quick heads up, everyone. We are the Eighth Element Podcast, not the Eighth House Podcast. We started out as the Eighth House, but due to trademark issues, we had to change the name. So anytime you hear us say Eighth House, it's actually the Eighth Element. I'm sure you're totally confused, so are we. Any words, Gargs?
Well, originally it was the Eighth House.
Right.
And we were sitting around in the house, and then we realized that certain elements were missing. And
There you have it. That's the esoteric explanation.
no, there's more.
Okay, go ahead.
So we figured that you were 5 elements and I was 3, and it would add up to 8. But then you were saying, since I have more girth, that I was 5 elements and you were 3. But I think we should just make it 4 and 4.
Let's just do it even Steven. And my middle name is Steven, so there you go.
It is?
Yeah.
My middle name's Charles, by the way.
Steven and Charles
record.
coming at you. All right, so we're the Eighth Element Podcast. If you hear us say Eighth House, just don't be confused. No, by the fourth, fifth episode, it's all Eighth Element.
And later we may change it to the Stevie and Chucky show.
Okay, thanks for understanding.
Awesome. I'm really excited today because... Why am I excited?
Let's see, why are you excited? Because you're drinking out of a Beatles revolver glass. That's what it is. Because we're going to discuss something that's very much pertinent, poignant, current, and keeps coming up in our conversations with others.
So we spoke about this a little bit before in our first episode. You remember that, guys? You can watch this episode now if you like to, and then go back and see the first one. And actually, we'd like you to watch them all, but
We will quiz you.
there'll be a quiz later, so pay attention. But we were talking about the subject, why spiritual people should be concerned about the goings-on of the external world and world events and things of that nature. And this doesn't just go for people who practice our tradition of Vaishnavism. It goes for Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and all other walks of life, even agnostics. The question is, why should we be concerned? And I think that one of the main problems, and I was talking to my son about this, is that a lot of, devotees don't want to talk about this because it creates enmity. People will fight with each other, and people lose their temper, and they just don't want to get involved. So that's one of the points.
Another point is, besides the enmity that we've seen, we especially see this online. It's like a kind of a vicious, shit throwing, excuse my French, festival online.
Sounds like English to me.
Yeah, it does. You're right. Stool throwing festival.
It's true.
You got the stool, Prabhu. But I think one of the things that keeps coming up in my conversations, and I've seen a tremendous amount of pushback from people in our tradition, that why are you discussing these things? What's the point? Because our spiritual mentor, Srila Prabhupada, said, you have a short duration of life. Don't waste it in external things. Focus on the ultimate goal, which is to return back to our eternal nature, back to home, back to Godhead, the indestructible spiritual realm of the kingdom of God. And I think that for a lot of practitioners in our path of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, that it's so challenging in and of itself to stay fixed on spiritual life and focusing on God. And, there's often the stricture, one should constantly chant or pray the name of God. So if one goes into affairs in the external world, it will deviate one from that path. And of course, there's tremendous truth in that, and our spiritual mentor on many occasions said, no, focus on the spiritual. Everything else is kind of going on according to the laws of nature, the laws of karma. Of course, and so, yeah, I can understand how many people do not want to go into this realm of research, thinking, contemplating the ways of the world and the politics and all the goings on.
And it's true, if you become too caught up in it and you offend each other, not only will friendships cease to be, not only will families split up, people stop talking to each other, but also what can happen is you commit spiritual offenses.
Correct.
To other people who are, sincerely engaged in devotional service.
Yes. So again, just kind of amplifying that point, therefore, a person who's on the spiritual path, and anyone in general, really, if they want to have some sense of emotional, mental balance in their life, there has to be some sense of decorum in diplomacy and dealing with others with respect and kindness and consideration, trying to see the other point of view. Otherwise, and especially in our tradition, there's the committing an offense against one who's dedicated their lives to the service of God. Mm-hmm. And that offense in and of itself can create a stain in the heart, which diminishes the creeper of loving service to God, and one gradually can lose one's taste if one is not careful. Mm-hmm. So we want to be very mindful of that. At the same time, we don't want to let that prevent us from speaking the truth about what is actually going on and what is the dangers of what is going on to a spiritual movement, and a movement that is God-centric. So it's interesting that, so many people, I did this podcast recently with this young woman from Holland about the Charlie Kirk affair, and I'm in a men's group. We meet once a week, and one of the last meetings we went to, I was going to speak about the podcast because I'd done that about a month ago. So this is, the Monday after that. And one of the guys there was so disturbed, and he's a wonderful person, and he's a pure-hearted soul. But he was so disturbed. He said, "I watched that podcast and I didn't like it. And how much did you watch of it?" "Oh, about a minute or two." And
right. Well, the atmosphere is so surcharged with that opposition,
right,
and the media plays a big part in that. And sometimes we just live inside our echo chambers, and the way the whole algorithm works when you're on social media, different types of social media, they're just going to feed you what you want to see, and there can be a tendency to kind of not connect with people who you disagree with. And I have certain friends and relatives who we have decided to have a ceasefire, so to speak, because we get too emotional and we're not able to have a give and take. And sometimes I think you do have to do that. But I think it's even better that if somehow or other we can come together and discuss these things in a civil way and try to see what our similarities are instead of just amplifying our differences. And another thing I understand is a lot of people feel that the situation is so urgent that they have to talk about it. And when people are on different sides of the spectrum, the problem is they both feel the urgency, but they both feel that, no, it's the opposite of what you're saying.
Right.
You know? And I have one friend who won't agree to the ceasefire. And he continually sends me stuff, and he's convinced of what he's convinced of. And I have been guilty of this to some degree in the past, and I'm trying to become more conscientious about it. But it doesn't mean that I want to no longer speak. I just want to be able to do it in a way that is that I maintain my equilibrium, my mental equilibrium, kind of like, you're in the eye of the hurricane. And sometimes we can talk about other things.
Yeah.
Things that we, like when I was a little kid, I liked to play sports. I didn't know what Nixon was doing, or Hubert Humphrey, or, George Wallace, or George McGovern. I mean, I heard their names, but, I didn't give a rat's ass for the most part. I wanted to play baseball or football. Now, of course, we all grow up, and we become women and men. But
Wait, you became a woman?
Well, I have that option, apparently, from what I hear.
You do.
But I think it sounds a little grueling, and I'm really not. I don't know. I just don't have that inclination at this moment. But you never know what could happen in the future.
It's so I think.
I don't think my wife would like it, though.
If you became a woman.
No, when we went into the marriage, it was a clear understanding that I was in a man's body.
Oh, right, yeah. I can see that now. It's very apparent to me.
When I get a little thinner, you'll be able to see it even more.
Gargs, you're just perfect just as you are. So, on this subject, my sister, God bless her, she's a, we grew up obviously in the same left-leaning Democrat family. And she's this, kind of a corporate professional, very left of center, but not radical leftist, although, the radicalization is going on. So even people that were kind of from the JFK, RFK school are now, gradually becoming radicalized due to the influence of, you could say, the propaganda media. But with my sister and I, we would have these vicious fights.
How vicious?
I have the wounds here. You want me to show you the wounds from the knife wound?
Was there growling involved?
No, it was untenable. So we decided.
I think you could probably take her in a fight.
I probably could, yeah. Nonetheless, I love her. She's my sister. And we have a fabulous relationship now because we honored the ceasefire. We're not talking about this. Sometimes she'll bring something up. I'll say, Wendy, you want to go there? I'll go there with you. But, it's not going to end well. Can we just stop it right there? So
Do you ever play the Beach Boys song Wendy with her?
I don't. But
what do you talk about, just out of
we just talk
curiosity?
About family stuff, what we're doing, what's going on with our kids, with the dogs, family stuff.
You ever talk about gardening?
We haven't talked about gardening, but I'll
crochet.
I'm crocheting a new little scarf for myself, actually for the dogs. But
excellent.
Okay, whatever the case may be, the purport is we have to honor the boundaries that we each set. So, like, your friend has not been honoring your boundaries, and that's just not cool. So there has to be a certain decorum of etiquette when we're talking about these things. So, so with this one person in our men's group, he said, "Yeah, we just, we shouldn't be spending any time on politics."
And by the way, he's not totally at fault because when we get into it, it gets to the point where we're both trying to talk over each other. And
you're talking about your friend, not the guy I'm speaking about. You're talking about.
I have a special relationship with that guy.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. So it gets to the point where, what is the point?
Right.
You know, let's talk about, you know, what the Celtics record is going to be this year or whatever. You know,
Or what kind of raga Krishna is playing on the higher realms. So, anyway,
we've never talked about that.
yeah, we should really, because that's elevated stuff. So, the thing is, what we want to unpack here, and I think we're going to likely have more than one episode, and we want to bring in other guests to discuss the subject matter, because it's a dilemma that people on the spiritual path experience. Why are we getting into this realm? The world's going to go on as it is, and we should just finish our business in this lifetime and move on to the higher realms.
And what did Bhaktisiddhanta say about the material world? It's like an outhouse. You
Do your business and get out.
get out.
Yeah.
Get out.
So the thing is, what a lot of practitioners in our tradition may not realize is that our spiritual master, our spiritual teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, he said many different things about this subject matter, and most people will tend to focus on the things he said that discourage us from getting into this realm.
Well, I think most people will have a tendency to see, to not harmonize everything, and just to see it in their own image. So some people want to really, really get into it, and they're not going to stop no matter what, and they don't care. On the other hand, what you're saying, they just want to avoid dealing with the whole situation for various reasons.
Right, and honestly, I respect that, because at the end of the day, there's the saying that Srila Prabhupada said, most important thing is save yourself. So if these...
And that goes for the beginning of the night as well.
Okay. At the end of the day, okay, I'm getting it. Yes, it's a Gargs.
Actually, the
it's a
beginning of the
Gargs-
night and the end of the day is kind of the same thing if you really think about it. It's kind of like maybe
yeah,
not.
The bottom line is it's what's most important is to, what gaineth the man if he conquers the whole world, but sacrifices his eternal soul, as Jesus said.
Oh, he gets a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, can't
But
take it with you
It's,
though.
it's temporary.
So
You don't see any hearses with luggage racks.
Yeah, it's too bad. But yeah, so I respect practitioners that don't want to go there, because if it's too much for their consciousness, so be it. However, I want to...
It just might not be their thing.
It's not their thing, but
Right.
what we want to unpack is the other perspective, is that why this particular juncture in history, that there's some very significant, deeply important threats, you could say, towards spirituality, towards theism, towards pious, righteous people, that if we are not aware of and do not deal with and actually work towards to counteract, that the entire realm of theism is at risk, which means our tradition, the Christian tradition, every religious tradition.
So we have to look a few steps ahead.
A few steps ahead.
What will this lead to? What will that lead to?
Exactly. And what
Okay.
I would, if I may, maybe what I'll do is I'm going to read just a few quotes from our.
Would it be possible to first mention the one where Srila Prabhupada, you already paraphrased it, but just to,
Right.
just to say that to not worry about these things.
Yes.
Just to
Okay.
give a balanced presentation so we can harmonize it.
Okay, so I've got to go find that.
No, sorry. I'm not
okay,
trying to direct you.
Oh, no problem, Prabhu. You're dominating. You're
I
trying to
understand.
control
I
me.
understand you are not my secretary.
So okay, so this is a famous quote from our spiritual.
We
mentor.
both have a lot of fixed signs, so sometimes this will happen.
So in Prabhupada said, this is from a conversation in Caracas, Venezuela, February 21st, 1975. Prabhupada said, instead of contemplating what will happen to this world, you have got a short duration of life, say 50, 60 years. I know I've already passed
He was probably
that.
talking to someone around 20.
Yeah, in the 20s.
Yeah.
You should, instead of contemplating what will happen, you should chant Hare Krishna and go
Hare
back.
Krishna.
Going back to Godhead. Don't consider what will happen to this world. Nature will take care of it. Don't puzzle your brain with these thoughts. You should utilize whatever time you have in your possession and go back to home, back to Godhead. You cannot check it. The best thing is that you mold your life and go back to home, back to Godhead. Oil your own machine instead of thinking what will happen elsewhere. Those things will happen.
What did he say? Oil your own machine?
Oil your own machine.
Wow.
Because people will go on with their rascal civilization. Natural consequences will be there. Better you take advantage of whatever time you have got, become fully Krishna conscious, and go back to home. So that's the one. Many people in our tradition will. I've had probably like 4 people send me this, say, okay, well, you're doing this, talking about these things.
Can I
but-
just add something here?
Yes.
There was a time when Trump was running, and he was speaking to Christians, and he said, just vote this one time, and you won't have to vote anymore. And it was misinterpreted by the left and by the media to say, then I'll be a dictator,
Yeah.
right? But he was basically, the Christians, they have that, anyone who's into spiritual life, they have that same mentality as well,
Right, because people on a religious or spiritual path, that's what their main focus. And it's like the ways of the world can be very disturbing, confusing, conflicting. So devotees in our tradition, they go to this particular quote in particular. And again, I respect those who have that point of view. But there is other points of view. So just like there's one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada on the West Coast was Shama Sundar. Shama Sundar later spearheaded the Vaishnava movement in the UK, and he became very close friends, intimate friends with George Harrison and the rest of the Beatles. So much so that George Harrison ended up recording the song My Sweet Lord, which has made the Hare Krishna mantra very famous. He bought the Bhaktivedanta Manor for the devotees in England. He became a great friend. Actually, this book here, can you hold that up a sec, Gargs? He gave the money to publish this book, which is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
He wrote the foreword
He
as
wrote
well.
the foreword, yeah. It's
Yeah.
very, very beautiful. So so Shama Sundar, I spent some time with him in Los Angeles a number of years ago when he was living in Topanga Canyon, and I went to visit him. And I said, Shama Sundar, he was writing a biography of his time with Srila Prabhupada.
Do you know the story that he told about when he approached George for the
I do,
the
but
money?
go ahead, you tell it.
Well, he basically hit up George for.
Well, Prabhupada first asked him to do that.
Yeah, he asked him to.
And
oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Prabhupada he said, I want you to ask George Harrison for the money to print this Krishna book.
Right.
And Shama Sundar was like, I don't know. I've never. One reason our relationship is so good with George Harrison being a Beatle is that I've never asked him for anything.
Right.
So go ahead.
Okay, so he was in George Harrison's home. I think there was someone else there, a sculptor or something, that was going to do some work. And at some point, Shama Sundar asked the question. I don't know how much it was, but it was a significant amount back then.
Or just $19,000.
Pounds.
19,000 pounds. Okay, whatever it was. Yeah.
70 or 69 or something. And so there was a very awkward pause. And
well, first he asked him, right?
no, after he asked him.
Oh yeah, he asked him, right?
Yeah, he asked him, and there was the awkward pause, and then just out of nowhere, a tremendous bolt of lightning and thunder hit, and I don't know, did the lights go out? Or
Lights
something?
went out. The lights went out.
And then George said something like, well, I guess that decides that. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know. But, he wrote the check.
Yeah, he was
Bingo, bango.
Yeah, he was like, I got the sign from God.
Right. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very grateful.
Yeah, he considered George his dear friend, and like he considered him like a son. And George considered Prabhupada like his spiritual father. So anyway, Shama Sundar,
His name is Harry's son.
Hari's son, yes.
Yeah, Hari.
As Ravi Shankar said. So Shyama I asked him, because Shyama was Prabhupada's servant for many years, Prabhupada's personal secretary. And I said, if you could name the 3 most quintessential lessons that you learned from your time with Prabhupada as his personal secretary, what would they be? Okay, he said a few things. I won't go into all of them just for the sake of brevity here, but the thing in relation to this is that he said, sometimes I'd be spending all day with Prabhupada, and in the morning he would instruct one of his students in one way. And then like 6, 7 hours later, he would instruct another one of his students what appeared to be the exact opposite. But he said I always witnessed and observed that every one of those instructions was perfect according to time, place, circumstance, and the mentality of that particular student. So what is my point here? The point is that while Prabhupada is saying, don't get involved in the affairs of this world, there are aspects and times when Prabhupada actually encouraged us to. So, and
there are exceptions.
There are exceptions. In other words, Prabhupada can't be put in a box. So I'm going to read, if I may. I'm going to get to the Bhagavatam verse, but first I'd like to read a few things that...
It's all about context and time, place, and circumstance.
Yeah, that devotees may not realize. So here's something. Prabhupada said, this is 1973 Morning Walk, if you don't educate people, don't vote for the rascals. Just try to understand who is the real man, who is the real leader. Hridayananda says, so political program is very important. Prabhupada said, yes, if public is educated to select the right type of leader, then automatically. And it is very easy thing that leader must be faithful. Leader must know what is God and how to trust in him. And he must be free from all sinful activities. The pillars of sinful activities are these. This is our propaganda. And then Prabhupada said, oh yes, our political activities can also become successful. Why not? Krishna was in politics, so Krishna consciousness means all around. Social, political, philosophical, religious, cultural, everything. So Prabhupada's saying something very different there.
Very nice.
And then there's another one where Prabhupada says, Narayana says, this is another time in 70. So if we are in the proper line, then our political activities can also be successful for Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, oh yes, why not? Krishna was in politics. So Krishna consciousness means all around. And again, he says, social, political, philosophical, religious, cultural, everything. It is not one-sided. They take it as they do not know. Therefore, they are thinking it is a religious movement. No, it is all-including, all-pervasive. So Prabhupada's including political there. So here's another one. This is 1977 in Bombay. Rameshwar, involved in some political activities, we must follow his example, Prabhupada. Oh yes, there is no doubt about it. We shall follow strictly to politics, economy, sociology, philosophy, religion, art, culture, everything. So we are not only for Hare Krishna. Of course, Hare Krishna is ultimate. That is, includes everything. But we should never say that politics is not our field. Prabhupada said again, but we should never say that politics is not our field. Why not? Krishna took part. Krishna instructs everything. So I have more, but your thoughts on those?
I think that we have to also apply this to our own lives, our own situation, our own ability to deal with it.
Right.
We have to be able to find our inner space. If our blood pressure is going up, doing some kind of activity, especially as we get older, maybe we should find a way to approach it from a different angle. Personally, myself, I was over social media and using that, and my son would always say, get a Substack, Dad. Why are you doing this? You're just, going around in circles, chasing your tail. And I think that it did help me. It did help me to see like different arguments, but I'm a New Englander and I can be a little sarcastic.
Really? I never noticed that.
It's true. But yeah, I can be a little sarcastic, and if somebody is coming at me heavy, then I have a tendency to go back at them heavy, but I still love them. However, I got to the point where I realized that a platform like this would be far, far better than like fighting with people who don't want to hear it, or who are or who want to try to force something down my throat. I don't want to force anything down anyone's throat, and I certainly don't want anyone to force anything down my throat. So at the same time, those in different sides of the spectrum feel the urgency to communicate what's going on and what's happening in the world, because it's kind of getting to the we're reaching the boiling point, or what is that called?
Critical mass.
Critical mass, yeah. The I Ching talks about critical mass a lot. So I feel there is a need to speak about these things. I strongly feel that. If somebody doesn't want to speak about them, I respect that. And I certainly don't want anyone trying to force their viewpoint down my throat. But I think we'll all be better off if we can have civil discussions and try to understand.
We want to understand things from a broad perspective.
Right, and I like to read this from the Krishna book here.
Yeah.
But before I do, I don't have it in front of me. But when you spoke to that devotee in Holland, Chitraleka, yes,
Yeah.
You cited the verse and purport.
You want me to read that?
I think it would be more. It would be better to read that first before I read what I want to read.
I'll do that upon your request, sire.
Thank you so much, and don't call me sire.
Okay, sire, sir. All right. So this is.
I know you are, but what am I?
You are the great Gargs. Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. It's known as the cream of all Vedic literatures. Veda means knowledge, so the essence of all literatures of knowledge.
And it's a postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly. So Srimad Bhagavatam's 12 cantos. It's very.
And by the way, the Krishna book is a summary by Srila Prabhupada of the 10th canto, which got directly into Krishna's pastimes. Anyway, go ahead.
So the 4th canto. So this speaks directly to the point in that the contentious point. Why should we get involved in these things? Better we just focus on our spiritual life. So the verse reads, this is again Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14, verse 41. The verse is, the great sages began to think that although a Brahmin is peaceful, a Brahmin is a saintly person, is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect the poor humans. By such neglect, a Brahmin's spiritual power diminishes, just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. So purport or clarification, explanation by Srila Prabhupada. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. Very interesting. Brahmins, the topmost section of human society, are mostly devotees. They are generally unaware of the happenings within the material world because they are always busy in their activities for spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, when there is a calamity in human society, they cannot remain impartial. If they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes.
Whoa, you don't want that to happen, do you?
So perhaps you can speak to that.
Okay, well, one thing is, back in the early 80s, I was out distributing some spiritual books. I don't remember which ones they were, with a friend of mine, a fellow devotee, and person that he approached said, "You don't even know what's going on in the world. Who's the president?" And the devotee said, "Reagan." He said, "Who's the vice president?" And he didn't know. Mm-hmm. He goes, "See, I told you." So that is a phenomena that they don't know and they don't care what's happening in the world. They're so absorbed in spiritual life. Mm-hmm. However, sometimes is intelligent to know what's going on, to be aware. Especially, it's one thing if you're a cloistered monk, if you're a brahmachari or something, or a brahmacharini, and you're just dedicating yourself like a monk or a nun or something, that's one thing. But it's another thing if you're actually living out in the quote unquote real world. Sometimes situations come up where it behooves you to know what's going on and to prepare for what could happen, because you have to be there as a person with spiritual knowledge to help people who are going to be freaking out. There's a lot of people who are going to be freaking out, when the shit hits the fan, and even you were mentioning before about this great sages would come down from Bhadarak Ashram during certain situations. So I just wanted to read, really it's the first paragraph of the Krishna book. It's called Advent of Lord Krishna. And this was a situation that was akin to that. Is everybody ready? Once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings, who are actually demons, but were posing themselves as the royal order. Now today, somebody will say, I know who the demon is, and someone else will say, no, he's not the demon. These people are the demons, or whatever. And some people say, they're all demons. Anyway, let me continue.
That's the black pill.
Black pill. And, in Kali Yuga, it is said that we all have a little bit of demon and devotee inside of us. Anyway, I'm going to continue. At that time, the whole world became perturbed. Does that sound familiar? The predominating deity of this earth, known as Bhumi, Mother Earth, went to see Lord Brahma to tell of her calamities due to the demoniac kings. Now, Lord Brahma is the has the highest post of this universe. He's not God, but he's like the most powerful demigod in this universe. He handles administrative affairs, and he is very, very powerful. So Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. So was she kind of crying? She was actually sincerely
genuine.
bereaved.
Yeah, she was genuine.
Right, but she wanted to show
Yeah.
Lord Brahma that this is not a good situation.
Right.
Something has to be done about it. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the ocean of milk, that's pretty far out, where Lord Vishnu resides. We have oceans of salt here, but there are places where there's oceans of milk, or there's an ocean of milk. And Srila Prabhupada describes there's oceans of many different things.
Yeah, these are all described in the Bhagavatam, in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
I'm going to go back a little bit. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu resides. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods, headed by Lord Shiva. He's really big up there, Lord Shiva. And Bhumi also followed. Arriving on the shore of the milk ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify the Lord Vishnu, who formerly saved the earthly planet by assuming the transcendental form of a boar. So, when the going gets tough, you got to do something about it. You can't just neglect it.
So
and go Om, right? You can't do that.
Yeah, like you could say the predominating deity of the earth. It's like every country has its ruler.
Mm-hmm.
So according to the Vedic understanding and perspective, each planet has a ruler, and the predominating ruler of the Earth planet is Bhumi, who's personified as a benefic cow that's like nurturing the Mother Earth. So she was feeling the calamitous position of the earth, and she approached the Lord.
But what do you mean by ruler? Because there were kings that were in charge.
Well, she was the
The caretaker.
she was the caretaker. Of the
Okay.
earth. Right.
She's overlooking.
Right. She's,
Okay.
she's the earth is under her care, and she was feeling the
Under her jurisdiction.
Under her jurisdiction, she was feeling the burden of these demonic kings plundering the earth in a very avaricious, selfish way that was disturbing the earthly inhabitants. So, similarly, in this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Prabhupada saying, nonetheless, when there is a calamity in human society, they, meaning the saintly people, cannot remain impartial. Like, we're just going to chant the name of God and go about our business. No, if they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes. Now, it can be said that, well, we're getting involved by distributing the transcendental message of the holy name and the nature of God, but what the purport is really saying here is no, more than that.
Well, if everybody could become
right,
raise their consciousness to a certain level, we wouldn't be having these problems.
Right.
However, that's not happening.
So in other words, a calamitous condition in society.
Mm-hmm.
So Prabhupada said on many occasions, and I read some of these last time, and I have so many quotes, that this communistic movement, what communism means equals atheism, which is the proxy controlling ideology for the globalist controllers of the planet that want to make a one world government. They are trying to do away with gender, trying to do away with God, trying to do away with sovereignty of nations, trying to do away with personal liberty. So many things can be said. So that is,
And why pre-tell are they doing it?
because they want to be the overlord gods and have no other god before
Conspiracy theorist.
them. Yeah, there's
Red alert, he's a conspiracy theorist.
I am a conspiracy researcher, because there's always conspiracies going on in the world.
That'd be a great t-shirt, conspiracy researcher.
Conspiracy researcher. There's always there's conspiracies in families to get the inheritance, in businesses to overtake the business. There's conspiracies in every realm. It's just that you give a dog a bad name and hang it, because during the Kennedy, after the Kennedy assassination in 1963, there was a Warren report which came out which just basically told the official narrative. There's one shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, and anybody that questions that, and there was countless people that were researching the Kennedy assassination said it could not have possibly been Lee Harvey Oswald because of the trajectory of the bullets. People saw multiple shooters, so many, the bullet, the Kennedy's brain, the whole 9 yards, what was on video, etc. We won't go all there, although that's an interesting subject matter for discussion.
You just did.
Well, we won't go there in detail. But the point is that to quell all the people that were researching it and coming to a completely different conclusion from meticulous research about what that was contrary to the official narrative, the CIA released, there was a document, a declassified document that said that we are going to develop this propaganda campaign to discredit anybody that is denying the Warren report, and we're going to call them conspiracy theorists. And from that point on, it became perpetrated in the media to label anyone that had an idea or a theory contrary to the prevailing media narrative, a conspiracy theorist, and they were crazy people.
Well, especially people who are getting toward the truth. It's a way to discredit them, to take them out of the conversation.
Yeah, to minimize critical thinking, to minimize discernment and critical thinking. No, we're just supposed to accept whatever we hear in the media, whatever, trust the science. No, it's actually trust the data, which reveals what the science is. So we're discussing conspiracies and how the prevailing powers that be try to marginalize people that want to think critically against and present something different than the prevailing narrative. So there is, and it's not a theory because it's based on the documentation that is given in papers, books, so many things, the Council of 300, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Rockefeller Lockstep Agenda, the letters written by Andrew Weitzkopf and what's the other gentleman? His name escapes me. Talking about the plan for 3 successive world wars. First World War brought in the League of Nations. Second World War brought in the United Nations. In other words, trying to have a unified global governance. You have the unelected World Health Organization. They've tried to pass treaties now, the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, to have all nations sign on that the WHO would have jurisdiction over the sovereignty of all nations, so they could basically...
And Biden was down on that.
Yeah.
He was down with that.
And the current Trump administration said, no way, Jose.
Nay, he.
Exactly. Because, and then their plan, Andrew Weitzkopf and what's the other gentleman? Albert Pike was a general from around the 1860s, wrote this letter, which chronicled their plan for 3 world wars. Very clearly documented. It's a whole other subject matter. But the Third World War would ultimately start between the friction between the state of Israel and the entire Arab world, and all people would become embroiled. Some people say, as our Srila Prabhupada did, that it could possibly start between India and Pakistan. Whatever the case may be, the friction would create this Third World War, which would be nuclear, which everything would be destroyed, and not everything, but we know what those who calculate the effects of a nuclear mass nuclear event would be. It's pretty much more or less destruction for the whole world. Some people will survive, but
especially the people who go under their multi-billion-dollar bunkers.
Yes. So, however, we can't say exactly, but from the ashes of that, they would be able to form a one world government because people would be suffering so much.
They don't want to do that, but if they have to, that's a arrow in their
Right.
quiver, right?
Yes, that's their ultimate ace in the hole. And that's why we see that in the current trajectory, there's, like you see, the Trump administration is really trying to make peace in these areas. A very concerted effort. People can say this and that about that, the Orange Man bad, but the fact is there's been 8 peace deals in 8 months between major superpowers, and the last one just being the Hamas, Israel, which all the Arab nations have signed on to. So it's a very major step, and the same peace is being worked towards in the Ukraine war. But the point is, you have people in NATO that are like, no, we don't want this.
Are you a Trumper?
I am observing things as to who is bringing the world towards more sanity and peace. So I'm not going to go into political affiliations at this point, but I'm seeing that there's been efforts to make peace when so many people rail against the current administration for so many things, but fail to see that peace is being established in many quarters of the world. And that is a very significant milestone accomplishment. So, because, for instance, you have the leaders of NATO, they want Zelensky, Ukraine, to come into NATO, which is a major red line for Russia. And it just appears from all objective observation that these people just want war. They just want war. They're telling their citizens, Russia's going to attack us, Russia's going to attack us. All Europe should prepare for war. When it's ridiculous, preposterous that Russia would even want to do that. They have all the natural resources, all the rare earth minerals. They have the largest country in the world. They simply didn't want these red lines to be crossed by NATO getting closer and closer to their doorstep. So the point is that I'm making is that there appears to be a concerted global or globalist agenda to bring the world into submission, to have a one world technological hegemony over the entire planet. And that seems to be what's happening, and we can speak about that in many, many ways. But
I'm looking forward to it.
So, just getting a call from my son. I'm going to wait because I want to get something on my phone here. But I wanted to read something from Srila Prabhupada that's going back to this political arena and spiritualists in politics. Like, for instance, there's one devotee, Amarendra, who started the Gainesville Krishna community. And Prabhupada wrote him a letter, and he said, I have studied your statements in the papers, and you have repeated my ideas and at the same time sounded like a politician. And this combination is very effective. You are certainly the right man for this teaching work. They have taken you as a serious candidate, and according to your statement, you feel that you may even be able to win in a political race. So I'm very much encouraged by this political field in America, Prabhupada wrote him. The people are very intelligent, and they take your statements seriously. So this is Prabhupada saying, once again, I'm encouraged by this political field. So for those practitioners that say, no, we shouldn't get into this endeavor, Prabhupada is saying in many other quarters that, no, I'm encouraged by this, that Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, includes everything, including the political field.
Not that we necessarily agree or disagree with Amarendra Prabhu's current views.
Yes, he's good
He's
man.
an all-around great guy.
He's an all-around
Hare
great
Krishna.
guy. So from this letter to Amarendra, we can see that Srila Prabhupada was very much encouraging in the political field. And here's another statement Prabhupada said, you should make political propaganda on the basis of reforming the whole human society. Another statement. That is from a letter in 1974. And then one more thing is that we have great saints in our tradition that were giving political advice. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Verse 10, Prabhupada states, political suggestions by Vidura. We know Vidura was a great saintly person, very wise. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times, Chanakya Pandit is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. So what we're essentially...
Now you got people like, well, no longer, but Henry Kissinger.
So yeah, in other words, spiritual life covers the whole spectrum, and we shouldn't be afraid of politics if we can handle it without it disturbing our consciousness. For myself, and I think yourself.
Or offending other people. Or being offensive, because someone may be offended and you're not being offensive.
Exactly. So we have to be very, again, have the proper decorum, show respect, not become... call a spade without being offensive, without doing ad hominem attacks. The point is that if we can handle it, I personally find it very inspiring in my spiritual life, because I'm seeing how what was given by our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, covers the broad spectrum, and and he wanted us to be involved in that broad spectrum of every aspect of society, and how to inject God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, the light of the Bhagavat, the very high knowledge of the Vedic Siddhanta into the zeitgeist. And I would also say that that at the current time, and I'd like to get your comments on this, you can see that more so, that, except for maybe during the Vietnam era, that young people, and especially because of social media, are hungry to hear about these subject matters. There's so many podcasts, so many commentators, so many people writing on Substack. They're hungry to understand this information and uncover what is the truth. There's the whole Great Awakening movement, which really came about in the aftermath of the COVID, you could say, plandemic, scamdemic, the whole presentation of we have to shut down the world over a virus that's never been isolated, and that's a whole nother discussion. But people were like, wait a second, something's wrong here. Nothing makes sense here. What is really going on? What's really about these shots? Why are these lockdowns? What about the masks, the mandates, social distancing? We're going to be locked down forever. Businesses are closing, yet, big box stores are open. You can't congregate in a church or temple, etc. So people were weirdly, so there's this whole, what's called the Great Awakening. People are going, what's going on? And
What do you want me to comment on?
I just want you to comment on what I'm talking about here. That there's an eagerness, let me get to my main point, and then I'll shut up. people, if we want to reach the people of this age, of this current cultural social milieu, we need to reach them where they are. And where the heads and minds and hearts of most people are is like, wow, what's going on in the world? Everything is being shaken up. If we can discuss these things and give the spiritual, the Gaudiya, or the spiritual, or the Bhagavad perspective, a God-conscious perspective on this, it will give people great hope, and they'll want to actually come to a higher spiritual understanding, and that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, I think that people feel they have no shelter, and they will push it out of their minds and kind of like live in their own world if they need to, or they panic and they become overly aggressive toward other people because they feel the urgency. And I do see that some of this need that people have, and a lot of them are young people, has been filled by people who are Christians. And this has created, to some extent, a backlash where people are afraid of Christian nationalism.
Right.
And there were a lot of open-minded Christians. Some Christians, they have a tendency to be a little exclusive. Jesus is the only way. And that turns people off. We understand.
And that's something we can really explore in future episodes.
Right. But
that whole dynamic.
But we understand yada yada hi dharmasya. When society becomes irreligious, then God gives people, according to time, place, and circumstance and the mentality of the people, different religious practices in order to raise their consciousness. So there are bona fide religions, and Christianity isn't the only way, but at the same time, they all are really the same way, but they're coming from different angles according to the mentality of people. And so I feel that those people who don't like that exclusivity, and we love people who worship Jesus, and Srila Prabhupada spoke that we honor these people.
Not only that, he also said we accept Lord Jesus as our spiritual master.
Yes, so he's a pure devotee. Now, anyway, that's the way we see it. Some may see it a little differently. Some think that he is God himself. But these are like little theological differences. But the point is that we all have to raise our consciousness, and people need to feel. They need to feel that shelter in their lives, and if they don't feel that, then they lose their mental health. And then on top of it, what happens is, like, the pharmaceutical industry comes in and says, "Oh, you're having a problem with your mental health. Take this pill, take that pill," and some of these things make it even worse. It's very complicated to try to find the right chemistry, to alter the chemistry of someone. And some of these people who are taking the pharmaceuticals maybe in the wrong way, they become even more disturbed in their minds. And this is creating a like an avalanche of despair, hopelessness, urgency, and just existential angst in society. And it's all coming to a head now. So I think that like people who want to kind of return to some semblance of sanity, because like there are people who are on the left or who are Democrats, like Bill Maher or the senator in Pennsylvania, Fetterman, right? Who they try to take a little more, what I would call a sane approach, but it seems like there's an extreme that is like kind of like causing this cascade where people are just at each other's throats, and we have to find a way that we're not going to be at each other's throats. And as people who are trying to cultivate spiritual life, whatever that we have wisdom that we have gained, we have to try to find a way to help people with that, give them the opportunity, without them feeling that we're talking down to them.
Yeah, and as you said, people are suffering. They're looking for shelter, and that's what we want to provide with people. It's not that we're special. We've just realized through our life experience.
You are special.
And gosh darn it, people like me. We've realized.
Some people hate me. But anyway, go ahead.
Who hates you?
I don't want to mention names. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not. I might be paranoia, but or they feel sorry for me. I feel very sorry for you. People have told me that.
Oh yeah, because of your view on this, that. But the bottom line is, people are looking for shelter, and there's shelter in an understanding and a realization that God is real. Krishna is the name of God. That means the all-attractive. God is all-attractive, and he's all-loving, that God loves us.
God is real.
Irregardless of what path we are taking to approach God, the name of God gives great shelter, soothing shelter to the mind and the heart. God is present in his name. So at the same time that there's that shelter, there is a threat. So we want to provide that shelter for people to have that experience of the name of God, of the wisdom of God, of feeling the presence and the shelter of God. At the same time, we don't want to be
You're a very compassionate person.
we don't want to be Pollyannas and think that it's just everything is love. Yeah, everything, God is the embodiment of love. But there are forces of darkness, and this is what I'd like to discuss, if we could change the trajectory somewhat, is what is the calamity that the world has experienced? Just like Mother Bhumi was experienced talking, she approached Lord Brahma. There's a great calamitous position of the world is overburdened by these demonic kings. Prabhupada talks in the purport, but if there's a calamitous situation in society, if the saintly persons don't act to help alleviate that, their spiritual knowledge will be diminished. So what would you say is the calamity that we are experiencing now? What makes this particular time so calamitous?
I think that because people, like if you water the root of the tree, then the whole tree flourishes, and prospers. Like if you, you feed the stomach, then all the nutrients are given to all parts of the body. So the problem is that people, they want the kingdom of God without God. It's really the basic problem. And, God has become very out now. You're holier than thou if you talk about God. Let's talk about God, baby. But I think it's a good thing. And, however you define God, if you can somehow or other bring your consciousness up higher, that you learn to try to follow the golden rule that's in the Bible. You treat others the way you would want to be treated. That you don't give in to hate, that you try to love others, and you try to see that spiritual spark within each form of life. And the more that we disrespect that, the more that we give into hate, and the more that we perpetuate hate, then the more inauspiciousness abounds. Mm-hmm. And so we're in this circling, this vicious cycle that's going around toward the drain now. And society is, people feel less and less secure, and they're just grasping for straws. And the media is telling them it's the devil, Trump is Hitler, for example, and some people would say that the way that that we're talking about, the this new world order that they're trying to create that wants to take away our freedom and wants to control us for their own ends. They think that Trump is on the top of this, and so they're feeling it also. The people who used to say that we're conspiracy theories, now they're conspiracy theorists. So everyone is getting very confused. Everyone is losing their heads, and that we can't lose our heads. We have to, as George Bush once said, the second, come together to unite. No, but we have to find common ground, and we have to discuss these things in a civil way, and we really just have to get back to the basics, that we're all part and parcel of a supreme being who is, we can get into philosophy here, but he's all loving and he's all powerful. Now, some people think that's a contradiction. There's so many bad things that are going on in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But all these things can be explained. But the more that people get away from just treating each other the way they would like to be treated, and trying to understand another person's point of view, the more that we get away with that, like Charlie Kirk said, if we stop discussing things, then it turns to violence. And so we're heading toward that possible violence right now, and we have to try to somehow, one person at a time, reverse the course. So if we all can do our little bit to do that, and to try to respect the divine within each individual that we're talking to, even if we completely disagree with them, then we're doing our part.
Yeah, great points, Gargs. Really awakening that spirit of seeing beyond the differences, seeing God in everyone's heart, respecting that reality of divinity within everyone. Neil Young had a song, and he said, even Richard Nixon has got soul. Yeah. So even Donald Trump has soul. Even the people who hate him and think he's, the second coming of Hitler, everyone is a pure spiritual being. It's just that we're covered over to different extents. Yeah, now speaking of Neil Young, when Spotify brought on Joe Rogan, Neil Young, all these people that I accepted as my musical heroes, like, oh, no, we're getting off Spotify, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, because he's talking about ivermectin, and it was mind-blowing to see people that we respected as great thinkers and songwriters become so down with the prevailing narrative that they were going to boycott the platform because he's expressing his free speech. It was mind-blowing. So it really reveals the mentality of even artists who have succumbed to the prevailing narrative and cannot tolerate anything outside of that narrative. I think also they don't know, they've been manipulated. Yes, of course. And they don't know that, but we can all become independent thinkers. And just because I say the Hatfields aren't as bad as you say doesn't mean I'm a Hatfield. Right. I would like to talk about what I see as the calamitous situation in human society. And I would like you to talk about that. Thanks, Gargs. So, again, it comes back to really, why are we doing this? How did we get to this point of us doing this podcast? I think we both saw that what I'm seeing, I think we're both seeing. I think we look cool in headphones myself. That's what I'm doing it for. Yeah, we gotta look cool. I mean, as my son says, hey, Dad, it's all about looking good in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, of course, he was just joking, but there's truth in that, in what the ego thinks. Okay, the calamitous situation. Human society is under assault in so many corners and quarters there's so many quarters of assault. Let's just take COVID as an example. Society was locked down over a virus that was never isolated. What do you mean by never isolated? it could never. They've never isolated the coronavirus in a laboratory, which means that it was manufactured based on. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. But you can look it up, Google it. It's never been isolated as an organic virus. It was conceived in a laboratory.
That's what you're saying.
The patents are there since
I agree with you there.
2015. Okay. That's a whole nother. I don't want to go into the minutiae of that.
Right.
But that is well documented by patents. Okay. Let me just continue
I just
on.
wanted to make sure people didn't think that you're saying that it was a figment of people's imagination and there was no like heavy flu or whatever it was.
Okay. No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
The point is that, again, human society is under assault. What are these different vectors of assault? We're being assaulted from, and I'm going to start with COVID. The entire world was locked down. The plan was to lock down the society for many, many, many years, where people would be begging for the cure. They would be willing to give up all their civil liberties. And then because it generally takes about 10 years to develop a vaccine. But that was stopped due to something called Operation Warp Speed. We can debate the pros and cons of that. But society would, in their original game plan from the Operation Lockstep and the Rockefeller 2010 Operation Lockstep, but there was other documentation. I don't have it in the tip of my tongue what that paper was. I can bring that up in the future. But it's all there in the documents. Society was meant to be locked down for many, many years. And the only way to get out of that was to have this mandatory vaccine. Now, we found out that the vaccine, the so-called vaccine, which was really a biological weapon masquerading as a vaccine. How do we know that? Because the Pfizer papers, as was discovered by a lawyer named Aaron Siri, who went to court and said, these records of what the clinical trials of the pharmaceutical companies have realized in their own clinical trials they're trying to hide these. Pfizer wanted to hide the
just to let the YouTube people know out there, the censors, that this is just a theory that we're presenting.
Yes, yeah. So, no, it's not a theory. It's actually they wanted to hide the 75 years. That's a documented fact.
Both the FDA and Pfizer
wanted to hide the clinical trial data, and they had a white paper insert that was blank. In other words, there was nothing about contraindications.
I was talking about the idea of it being
a biological.
Right,
that's a theory.
Intentional biological.
Right. Okay, well,
weapon.
that's a theory. Okay. We'll say that's a theory.
Yeah.
So they wanted to hide the clinical trial data, what the contraindications were, and what the ingredients were for 75 years. Hello? Massive red flag. Why is that? We've now seen that in the clinical trials of the Pfizer vaccine, there was massive harm to every organ. There was about a list of, I can't remember the exact amount, over, I think, 500 harmful areas of disease, destruction for the human body, especially for the reproductive tract.
Wasn't there some, I think it was that study, but I'm not sure, where 80% of the pregnant women who took the vaccine
that was
had
in the New
miscarriages.
England Journal of Medicine, the most respected medical journal, that approximately 83% of pregnant women miscarried in their first 2 trimesters who took the COVID vaccine. The vaccine was shown to create immense damage to men's sterility and women's fertility, what to speak of causing massive spikes in heart issues, heart swelling, myocarditis, pericarditis.
And the overall mortality rate
yes.
of those who took the vaccine was higher in the study than those who did not take the vaccine.
Yep.
And then, before they could study the long-term effects, the people who did not take the vaccine were given the vaccine.
Right, exactly. So there was massive harm. There's a new study that just came out which showed, it was a double-blind, peer-reviewed study of the vaccinated and unvaccinated, showed that the unvaccinated remained healthy, where the vaccinated experienced tremendous decrease in their physical health and even their mental health.
And but by the way, at this point, Jimmy Dore will say, the vaccines are safe and effective. Go out and get your booster shots. Go ahead.
Okay.
He always says that after.
Yeah. Okay. In other words, we're that's the narrative. So, in other words, don't think for yourself. Don't look at the data. Just follow the science, which means follow the narrative, not the data. A discerning person will follow the
What did
evidence.
Fauci say? I am the science. Did he say that?
I am the science. Anybody that says it's like saying I am God. Follow me. So, okay, the insurance actuaries post-COVID discovered, and this is all well documented, a 40% increase in total mortality, in human mortality, than normal. Like generally, there's a certain percentage of mortality every year. In world wars, it goes up by about 2 to 3%, maybe 5% for catastrophic events. But for World War I, World War II, human mortality yearly went up by about 3 to 4%. During the COVID which was post-vaccination from 2021 on, the insurance actuaries and the morticians found, and this is in the insurance actuaries because they have to base their insurance policies on mortality. The mortality rate went up 40%.
It's the bones of their business.
40%. So
Yeah.
we could say that there's a biological attack. We could see that there's glyphosate, there's pesticides in the food. We could see there's
Chemtrails.
There's geostratospheric aerosol injections, otherwise known as geoengineering, the vernacular.
And by the
common
way, have you
vernacular.
noticed how much clearer the skies
Yes.
are here in Florida?
So, yeah, because
And I'm not saying it's anything, but we haven't had any hurricanes this year. Now, it just may be just the luck of the draw. It's possible. I don't know. But for some reason or other, we haven't had any. I'm very grateful for it, for whatever reason it is.
because Florida outlawed geoengineering, because in the chemicals
Not that
they're
we
spraying-
couldn't be hit with a hurricane if that wasn't the fact, but still.
the chemicals they're spraying from the sky, barium, strontium, aluminum, mercury, there's lead in there. These are all massively toxic chemicals to the human systems, not only to the human system, but many species, like the bee species, is practically dying off. And if the bees go, human society goes, because they pollinate the flowers. So we're being attacked from the sky, we're being attacked in the food.
How about the water?
We're being attacked
The
in
fluoride.
fluoride in the water,
The
which is
atrazine.
the fluoride in the water. It calcifies the pineal gland. The pineal gland is our ability for critical thinking, to discern higher understanding of spiritual
Get your
truths.
deep earth, Nash and iodine.
So what does this mean? Why should we matter? Because we're raising children. Our children are raising children. If they subject them to these things, just like we've seen so many people they vaccinate the children, they become autistic. They vaccinate the children, their stillbirths have increased significantly.
Poppycock.
So these things are very well documented, and we can bring the receipts for those. We're just giving a general outlay. So if we want our children to be healthy, we have to know how that the forces that be are polluting the world so we can protect ourselves. And then ultimately, there's been a massive censorship campaign, and even in our society, the Krishna consciousness movement, during the COVID era, any editorial submission to the 3 social media sites that are in our society that presented a different narrative about the vaccine were not allowed to voice themselves. So there was abject censorship even within a religious
And there
movement.
was the disinformation dozen. You know, the people who were exposing the truth the most. They wanted to, the government, the Biden administration wanted to start, they were talking about starting a ministry of truth,
Right.
you know, which is basically disinformation, a disinformation, campaign.
Exactly. So they demonized those that were giving valuable information. Like Joe Rogan. He's like, yeah, I cured myself by taking ivermectin. and they demonized him.
And all the heads of all the social media now are coming forward and saying that we were pressured by the government during the Biden administration to do this.
Right. So the purport of all of this is that, and there's so many more, the attacks on the youth. One quarter, over 25% of Generation Z identifies as LGBTQ. There's been a proliferation in the educational system pushing towards, you can decide to
You
do
forgot
whatever.
plus.
Exactly. Plus is, identify as a jackass, which, I understand. People may think of me as that. But whatever the case may be.
By the way, we love all people. Whatever they decide to do is fine.
But if you're going to push it as a propaganda mechanism onto the youth, again, what is the goal in the communist Chinese and when Russia was under the communist regime? There's people that have defected from those particular ideologies said this is what the plan was, to confuse the youth, to degrade and confuse the youth so we can control them.
Right. It's the demasculation of society.
Exactly.
Because when there is more, or when there's more men with actual high levels of testosterone who actually are wise and can control it, they protect society.
So they want to.
They want to get rid of the protection so they can F society. That's what they want to do.
And F society means no God. We are the gods.
We are the gods.
And the model of that is communist China. Communist China, there's a huge purging right now of Christians and of religious people. The Uyghur Muslims are in concentration camps. The Falun Gong. The point is that the model for the globalists is communist China. A total surveillance state. Religion is outlawed. Fast forward, look at Christianity, look at the Krishna consciousness movement, the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. If we are not discerning and cannot see the writing on the wall, these religious movements will be stamped out. They'll be made illegal. And the books of Srila Prabhupada will be banned for hate speech. That is coming.
Oh, they'll be co-opted and changed and to the point where, I think that they would like people to come under some type of unifying religion that fits their needs.
We can see that the social Marxists, the social Darwinists, their intention in their papers is to infiltrate corporations, governments, education, religious institutions. So we have to be mindful of these things. We have to have an awareness, our ear to the ground. Otherwise, we're sleepwalking into destruction. And that's why it's important to be aware of these things.
Keep your ears and eyes open. You'll find out who your friends are and your enemies.
Right. And therefore, that's why we're doing this. We want to look at these things and still, at the same time, keep our consciousness focused on God and on the representatives of God and their instructions and on our spiritual practice. So in the process of this, we don't become overcome by these political affairs, but can actually make progress toward the path of love of God.
Uh-huh.
But not be blinded. Arjuna fought in a war. Prabhupada said he was killing like anything. It was a holy war that God had sanctioned because of the avaricious demonic nature of the opponents.
What I read here in the Krishna book was prior to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do have a duty to help the calamitous
I don't
situations.
want to go to war.
Yeah. So
I don't want
we
war.
are appealing to spiritual practitioners to broaden your perspective. There's more than just, we just want to read the books of the six Goswamis. I don't want to be bothered with this. Some very prominent cultural teacher who's a very prominent member of our society and a big star, you could say, was like, I don't have time for this. I could be spending my time. So all power to you, but beware.
A lot of people have that mentality.
That's great, but Sri Upanishad states we should cultivate a knowledge of the material and the spiritual side by side. Verse 11, Ishopanishad. Because if you understand the material and how the material energy is working, you will not be overcome by it. So we are, the ways of Maya and of the globalists and of the you could say puppet masters of the world are very cunning. They're very intelligent.
They accuse you of what they're doing.
So we have to be aware of this. So our humble plea is, that's what this is about, our podcast. We're trying to help people become aware of these things, but keep the spiritual perspective. That is what's most important. Closing words, Gargs.
I think that everybody just has to find the right balance for themselves, and they can't be blind to what's going on, and they have to be open-minded. And like we said before in the first podcast, that it's not about being right. It's just trying to get it right without becoming obsessed with it.
Right.
And then when you get it right, then you naturally know what you need to do, right? Because God is within all of our hearts, and He'll direct us to do what we need to do. But if we just become, we can become lost in our ego or lost in our fear or any of the like the lower qualities, then we're going to ultimately feel lost. So, what society and what the world is heading toward right now, as we said before, appears to be a critical mass. So how do we deal with it? It's not going to be the same for everyone, but whatever we do, I think we have to treat each other with respect and dignity and attempt to discuss these things in a civil and respectful way.
Great. Yeah. Ditto that, man. High five on that one, bro. So thank you guys for joining us, Gargs and I, Buzz Ryan, Gargs Allard, and we invite you to come join us for future episodes. We're going to be unpacking these things, many different subject matters.
Subscribe and like our podcast, please.
I hate when people do that. Anyway, we're grateful that you could join us, and we're just going to keep cranking out some cool content and have very fascinating guests on, and we'll see you next time.
Chowder.
Chowder.
Living a simple